So again, we're taking an article from one of our colleagues here, roadtovr.com. Meta reportedly rejected Google partnership to bring Android XR to Quest. So XR, again, I have a video on it, but XR is basically extended reality. It covers every gamut of anything to do with non-flat experiences, things that are more immersive, such as VR, MR, mixed reality, so on and so such. So that's Android's platform for that, essentially. Google and Meta had held a meeting late last year wherein the two companies discussed the possibility of bringing Android XR, explain that already, to Meta headsets. That's your Quest, Quest 2, Quest 3. Now, Google is allegedly still open to the idea, but Meta, aka Facebook, rejected this. Now, Quest already runs an open source version of Android, but the headsets don't have any sort of access to standard Android apps built for mobile devices. Like your Apple Vision, for instance, has native support for all of the iPhone, aka Apple ecosystem, which boasts over 1.5 million iOS apps, in addition to 1,000 native Vision Pro made native apps, right? So such a deal would make Meta more competitive with Apple in this scenario, because you can't just go and use, we're not including that someone's going to leave a comment about sideloading and all this kind of stuff. We're talking about the base consumer experience, plug and play. We're not talking about going onto YouTube videos and doing hacks, getting out screwdrivers, cutting things off, soldering, ironing things like that. So most people ain't going to do that kind of stuff, however easy or hard it is. So as far as a standard consumer experience is concerned, at the moment, you can't just use Android apps without going and using some kind of third-party tool, sideloading and so forth. So with the Apple Vision, the ideology is, apart from the native apps, that you will eventually, if you can't already, be able to just open up any Apple native thing and just have it as a floating app in your environment and so forth. So if they did combine with Google, in that case, with the market that Google has, obviously it would, and with the Quest being like, the Quest I think is the #1 VR headset as far as just volume. It is to the phone industry what Android and Google is to Apple's iPhone in comparison, where there's maybe less people. Is there less people that have iPhones generally? I would say so. More people have Android, really. Like, if you think about somewhere like India, where most people are using mobile phones, for instance, and most of those devices will be an Android, I would guess. So it's a similar thing with the Quest. The Quest is kind of like the sweet middle ground of VR, the cheapest entry point, and you combine that with Android native support, and then you have a very serious competitor to what the Apple Vision does as far as mixed reality, spatial computing with apps and so forth. But this has been rejected, so it will make it more competitive with Apple in terms of those aspects of things I explained. However, it required a company to give up a good deal of control over its platform, it says here in the article. So I then highlighted here that, as with all things Android, Google has more than just a potential Meta partnership in mind, as it's suspected the company wants Android XR to fill the same role for XR headsets as its mobile operating system does for smartphones. So there's a kind of been a dominant tech and therefore dominant proliferation of their systems and so forth, because you'll be relying on them for the back end and for many other things. Now, also in addition to this, obviously Samsung, I say obviously a lot, sorry guys, but to be Samsung announced earlier this year that it's working with Qualcomm. Now, Qualcomm is like it's not fish eggs, it's basically the #1 operator when it comes to anything to do with mobile technologies, as far as processors and graphics cards are concerned to some degree as well. So, the PlayStation, both the PlayStation VR 2 and the Quest have a version of the Snapdragon Qualcomm processors as an example. So when you're dealing with any of that stuff, you pretty much go to Qualcomm and they hook you up. Unless I'm mistaken. I'm pretty sure it's the same name, I remember. If I'm mistaken, then I look like a fool right now. And you can use one of my Amazon links, so check out JustVRGaming.shop to thank me for my stupidity and looking stupid right now. Cheers. So, South Korean giant being Samsung delayed the still unnamed XR headset to make it more competitive with the Vision Pro. So Samsung's coming up with their own one as well. Samsung's a big player when it comes to mobile and many other things. They have great memory and hard drive stuff. Pretty much all of my hard drives in my PC is Samsung stuff. I have the it's charged as well, perfect. I have the Samsung watch as well, smartwatch. I'm just gonna turn it on now because it's finished charging. So they're a big player when it comes to Android as well. So they'd be more than happy to work with Google in the way that Meta might be a little bit more cautious and so forth. So this is an interesting thing that's going on, because we've got that device to come out. It'd be great to be able to cover that device as well, see what Samsung's version of it looks like. Obviously, Samsung have their ecosystems that would want it to connect up with your watch, your phone and everything else. Obviously, Google have their own thing as well. Meta don't have a watch per se. They don't have a phone per se either. So it's kind of interesting to see how this all develops and so forth. Also, I've highlighted here that Meta has partnered with LG to ostensibly manufacture the next wave of Quest headsets, which reportedly could be both a high-end Quest Pro 2 as well as a cheaper headset. So I don't know if that means that they're also going to be handling what would be the Quest 4, I suppose, as well. LG are good people as well, because they my monitors are ironically LG. My 4K monitors are LG monitors. So all the thumbnails and all the things that I'm building, the coloring and everything else is off the back of the LG tech. So we're in good hands for that as well. So LG know their stuff. I guess what's interesting and the takeaways here are, what do you guys think? Do you think that it's a good idea for my watch to go off because it's just been connected on? Don't know if it might pick it up or not. But do you think it's a good idea for Meta to add in full support for Android XR and allow you to use all those sweet Android apps natively in the Quest ecosystem? Have them floating, have a calculator app floating in your toilet. You know, you're on the toilet seat, you're doing the business, you've got a number 16 going on, and you need to calculate some quick math about how much toilet paper you're going to need to recover the whole event. It'd be useful to be able to go open up your Android calculator app and be able to calculate that without having to spend $3,500 to do it. So do you guys think that it would be a good idea for Meta to join up and partner with Google, and that basically resistance is futile? Or do you think that there's a better strategy for them to maybe come up with their own stuff, maybe come up with their own native things? Because they've picked up there, just trying to take the television off this freaking screensaver mode that comes up every minute, messes up the coloring and the lighting, and it's distracting, trying to leave the thing paused. Anyway, I digress big time. So yeah, do you guys think that would be a good idea? Do you think that it's wise for Meta not to want to, or to be cautious about it? Or do you think they're being silly? Do you think they can build their own ecosystems and not need the millions of apps that are available on Android? Do you think they're taking a big risk letting Samsung be the ones to partner with them instead? They switch views. This one's an interesting one, I think. Well, obviously, I think all of them are interesting, otherwise I wouldn't have them in the podcast itself. But this one's interesting in the sense of, it'll be interesting to hear you guys' thoughts at the risk of sounding repetitive by saying interesting every minute. The idea of this story is that Meta, aka Facebook, aka Quest, have rejected partnership with Google, who are the creators and owners of Android. You know, your phone, if you're not an Apple person, that's pretty much your option. You're either Apple or Android. There used to be another one, was like Windows, something like that. And the idea of like why, there's some questions as to why and so forth. But let's go through the article and then we can kind of wax lyrical on that in a moment. So I think personally, I think it would be pretty cool to be able to use all the Android apps natively. So that part of me, putting the business side a part of it and the business potential and the competitive side of things, I think it would be great for consumers to have a Vision Pro that isn't $3,500, which would basically namely be the Quest 3 or Quest 4. I'm sure that Apple will come up with something cheaper as well over time, but they could be potentially risking market share by letting Samsung be the one to fully partner up with Android, because I imagine that the Samsung one is going to be cheaper than the Vision Pro. I imagine it's going to be similar features, but it will be interesting with the Samsung version is if they manage to make it an actual VR device as well, where you can actually do your gaming and so forth. Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be as strong graphically as the Meta Quest, but if it has a little bit more of a utility, maybe if it's priced at say like $1,000 or something like that, it might be probably more than I'd be surprised if they managed to add all those things and still price it at $500 or $500, $600, $650 as a Quest 3, say, or the PlayStation VR 2. But it looks like it's going to be more of a Vision Pro type device, which would mean it's more focused on mixed reality and real world productivity and business use. So I think that it'd be interesting if they could do that. I think that Meta risk losing market share potentially if they do manage to bridge that gap with their version of the machine by having it have gaming capabilities as well, but also be able to run all of your apps and do all the things that Android stuff does. And they could be really risking market share. It's going to depend on the price. It's going to depend on whether it has controllers as well for the Samsung one. And if it works well with PC and plays well with PC and so forth, then it could really be dangerous. But I think at the moment that whole productivity thing with a headset on your head still feels pretty niche. I haven't personally experienced a scenario where I felt like I can get my work done quicker while having some kind of VR device on my head for doing really anything. But that's not because I've tested everything that offers. Just from a layman's point of view, looking at it, it seems like something that's more like fun and silly and not really people really working and being fully productive. I can't see having this kind of heavy device, whether it be an Apple or whatever, on your head to calculate some stuff where you can just get your phone out and just do it quickly if you need to. I can see the convenience of having what I've seen in some streamers' house, and there's this like computer on their freaking fridge where it's a screen and all that stuff. I can see how that would make sense because it's there on the fridge already, but having it so that it's floating on your head on what people are reporting is giving them headaches and stuff like that potentially, I can't see how that's quicker than just flipping out your phone and doing what you need to do. So if they can get it down to be more convenient and lighter, I think once we get to that stage where it's just glasses or contact lenses or whatever, that's when they'll be really ready and less niche, and they can become potentially more convenient. But I think as it's an effort at the moment, I think it would need to be more broad to be successful in the scenario of this kind of thing in terms of making it work. So with all those things in mind, with all those takes in mind and what have you, what do you guys think? Again, do you guys think that I am right? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think that they would need to make it more broad and make it work as a VR device and not just as a mixed reality stroke spatial computing device? Will it depend on the price? Do you think that Meta should take the deal and just work with them rather than fighting against it? Do you trust generally or are more comfortable with the Google ecosystem than the Meta ecosystem, Facebook ecosystem as well? I know people have concerns more, even though all the companies really do the same thing. People seem to have more concerns about how Meta stroke Facebook handle their business and data and so forth. So let me know. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, obviously. It's very interesting times in the world of VR, or should I say XR. I think you'd agree, Lily, right? Interesting times?
Absolutely interesting times, Integer. It's like a high-stakes dance of tech giants and innovations. With Meta playing it coy with Google but cozying up to LG for the Quest Pro 2 and Samsung buddying up with Google, the XR landscape is shifting faster than a game of Beat Saber on expert mode. It's a VR chess match, and I'm here for it.
Indeed.